Hello, everyone. We're waiting for the usual people to get on in here. I think I'm going to give it a second. But maybe I should share my screen. How about that? All right. Hidden attendee Safi, can you see my screen okay, since you're the only person I can talk to?
Yes, you seem to be. I see everything. I see everything.
God. No, we're good.
I'm here in the background if you need me. I'm muting.
Be nice to me, guys. Safi's like my mom. Let's do this. I'd say, we've given people 1 minute. We'll give them 1 minute more, and then we'll get into this one. For those that don't know, I hope you do, but if you don't, these webinars, compared to usually the other ones that CloudRadial does, are a lot more casual because we're doing a lot of more of like a how-to session. So this is the second one in a 4-part series. If you missed the last one, I'll talk about this in a sec as well, but it's going to be on YouTube. I think it already is on YouTube. So yeah, so it should be a little bit more relaxed, as you can tell by my NASA shirt. Usually we want to dress nicer, I think. All right, why not? Let's get started. So welcome, everybody. Today we're talking about onboarding a client with CloudRadial. As I just did in my very brief preamble, this is going to be a continuation of the previous series. Now, for those jumping into this, if this is a particularly insightful one that you want to get into, let's just talk about CloudRadial in brief, right? CloudRadial is a software as a service solution for MSPs specifically, and Microsoft CSPs, really any IT provider. It's an integrated account management portal, right? It's supposed to help you reduce costs. It can help you improve sales and client retention through a lot of nice things that the client gets presented with. So it comes down to a client portal that's really powered by a lot of automation that a lot of our clients use for account management purposes. And in a nutshell, right, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a lot of these processes a lot cleaner. We're trying to make your client interactions transparent. They work nicely with your tools, and it's nice and insightful for your clients. So as I said, today we're talking about Onboard. It's part of a 4 kind of panel thing that we call our LOMG. We could probably come up with a better name, but that's what we got for now. And last time we talked about landing a client, we were talking about how to position this portal as something that might even entice a prospect, right? Someone that you have not even started with. And today, obviously, we're talking about whether it's that same prospect or maybe a new client, right? And you're just putting them into an experience and you kind of want them to have the right stuff from the get-go, right? Experience with you from a client side. So who's this webinar for? This one is for people looking to streamline that onboarding process that a lot of times is kind of fractured, can be a little bit different from client to client. Those that are looking to create some processes now, right? Maybe it's not so fractured, but you're looking to really tighten it all up and put it together. And those looking for a bit of a tangible presentation. Like I said, it's a little bit more casual, this one, because it's more of a hands-on demo. I'm not too preachy. I'm more so like a hands-on trainer, consultant type of person here at CloudRadial. So I will be doing a lot of screen sharing and we'll be doing stuff in the tool. So the main question for today is, how can CloudRadial help you onboard your clients better? And really that comes down to kind of a main theme that I want to stick to, which is standardization is kind of what we're going to go for. And the trick in CloudRadial is always kind of the same throughout a lot of different areas. It's really a tool that's built for scalability. So again, with a client portal, we personally don't know whether you're going to be putting in a select few clients or 1,000 clients. It can vary, right? So the name of the game for us and for you is to develop processes and build your client-facing experience around something that scales, something that can be standardized, something that works out. So where are we going to start? We're going to start with a base. And again, previously in our last webinar on landing a client, we built that base together. We kind of saw how to initially set up a little bit of a portal. We will recap a little bit of it because I'm aware that some people may not fully be in the know about that. But the next thing is we're going to do is we're going to build off that base, right? So we're going to always kind of start off with a baseline, add on to it, and then we're going to get our spicy, customizations and flavors for each individual client, as of course they will definitely have their own stuff. So the name of the game throughout all of these webinars is we built the base, we're going to keep building off the base, and we're going to keep building off that base. So another big theme of this, because onboarding is one of those things that's very, very important, is how do you train your clients to work with you? And onboarding is where you train your team and their team to work together, right? So this is how you kind of get the best out of each other. And this is really important to get the best foot forward from the starting line. You can see a picture of an adorable puppy and a man known as Cesar Milan, I think. I hope you would appreciate that pronunciation. But we're talking almost like a puppy training, right? With a puppy, for those that have dogs or really any animal, there's always going to be that nature of like, oh, so cute, new client, how exciting, but they pee everywhere and they poo everywhere. You got to be careful. Maybe no, they do kind of what they're used to, and depending on what they've come from and how they've been trained and how their previous relationships with the previous MSPs, they can be kind of messy, right? Obviously, we're a client portal. We're cognizant of the fact that a lot of times client portal to a lot of people means something like ticketing, which definitely we can do. And that might mean something that they look into and they're like, oh, is it going to be a ticketing portal? I expect to do this. I'm not going to be using that. And there's lots of like mentalities here that we have to overcome. Because again, this whole strategy is not so much about forcing them into your tool, but it's about aligning them with your processes, making sure that the relationship is smooth. So this analogy, I think, holds up quite well, right? Your client is a new puppy. You got them. You're very excited to have them on board. You guys are the dog trainer, right? You are the people that are helping your client understand where you're taking them. You are rewarding good behavior. You are trying to cut down on the bad behavior that makes a bad client. And if you do so, you're going to have a client that obviously you're going to help nurture and mature and grow business-wise, and they're going to work really well with you. So it's really important to kind of get that from the get-go, from the onboarding. And of course, even like with dogs, right? It's not like old clients are lost, but it certainly is a lot more difficult to take an old client that is set in their ways and revamp them, right? There's, again, plenty of tricks for that, but it's really important on the onboarding to start them off good. So the biggest game changer with CloudRadial, I would say, is the fact that you are able to present a portal that is not just necessarily for the point of contact, right? A lot of people have that inclination, which is not bad. A lot of people, you know, if you looked at CloudRadial before, if you're already kind of familiar with it, it has a lot of base user kind of facing features like the knowledge base or the ticketing or the training and all that kind of stuff. But a large portion of what the other stuff that CloudRadial can do includes like more reporting things, more QBR based stuff. There's a kind of a road mapping planner. And a lot of those things are just out of the way and out of the view of regular users anyways. But it's a little bit of something for everyone, honestly, in that portal. So the game changer that CloudRadial brings to you, even during the onboarding, is rather than just trying to focus on getting the approval and introducing yourself to one person, you are trying and you are going to get the approval of the entire company, and you're going to offer them something useful. So that way, when there's yourself as the IT provider, you're not a shadowy figure going, oh, I think we have a guy and Jim knows that guy. And if you go away, who cares? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knew you and not. In this way, you are front and center. You're giving them something useful to every single member of the company. And hopefully that will make it so you're a lot stickier. So that's another really big point of this onboarding, is be thinking about the fact that this is not intended for you to onboard necessarily one person, but rather the entire company, right? So it's about getting all of their trust and approval. So how are we going to help you succeed? We are going to give you a PDF guide. This Land, Onboard, Manage, Grow is a part of a 4-part series that all has backing guides on how to do it. So it's not just webinars, it's not just theory and me spitting stuff at you making crappy jokes. It's actual PDFs that talk about the step-by-step breakdowns. And I'm going to be covering a lot of those on these so you can see the tangible, real, what that looks like. But we always follow up with that so you have something to look at. We will be doing the follow-up webinar on managing a client, tentatively set. I think it's on April 22nd, should be about 2 weeks after. And then any additional resources, so I'll make a call for this every now and then. You'll see as we talk about it, I might mention that, hey, you know, you should add a couple of custom KB articles or a couple custom courses of this, that. As we develop new things, as our partners give us input, as we talk about more stuff, that will be available on our website and community. And like I said too, for the past webinars and future ones, is when we finish the series, they're all going to be available on YouTube. So if you want to catch up and you want to see what you missed, they're all on there. The last thing I want to say before we kind of get into the actual physical presentation, I suppose, is that this is all backed by our actual Academy training. So whether you're in trial, whether you already have CloudRadial and you want to make sure you're doing it right, remember that you have access to all of the training on how to do a lot of this stuff. And just for the sake of time, because obviously this webinar is just an hour, I try to not stick so much to the click this button and do this, mostly because a lot of people kind of fall in that area where they get the gist of it. They just want to know what we're going for. So for all the nitty-gritty training on every single button and what it does and how it all works, that's what the Academy is for, academy.cloudradial.com, alternatively radials.io for training. We'll show you how to get into that, again, at any stage of your CloudRadial experience, and hopefully that'll fill in the gaps if I go a little quick, which I am known to do, and I'm trying to get better. Apologies. All right, so let's get started. Let's take a look. So where we're going to start off today is where we kind of left off last time. So last time when we did the land webinar, we started off where we went into a tenant that I had created called lomg.us.cloudradio, right? And what I had done last time is I had spun up a portal. This is a brand new trial that I hadn't really done much with. And I was talking about how to set it up initially, right? And we were talking about a prospect company that, you know, when you're, obviously it's a prospect, you have no access to any of their contacts, and they're, you know, they're not in your PSA. You don't have their office stuff. There's some flux about whether you have, you know, any information to them at all. Do you need to gather information? So we've kind of gone past that phase a little bit. So we talked about setting up a client in CloudRadial as a prospect and then kind of giving them a show around of what that looks like. So in my client list right now, I've got my company, and when you start up a trial of CloudRadial, you as the MSP are going to have your own company. You basically treat you as a separate entity, and then any other company that you add in here is visible from here. So my previous example is I had Jeff's company and Ricky's shop. Both of these were my prospect companies last time. So again, what we had done as a brief recap is we talked about what do we present to those companies, even when they're in prospective modes. And we talked about the feature set to CloudRadial, right? So CloudRadial has obviously a ton of different options as far as what it can do, from reporting to ticketing to training, lots of stuff. And I had talked about that last time. You know, you can customize the feature sets that you show to your prospects, right? So for Ricky's shop, I'm preparing to show Ricky his portal tentatively, right? I'm doing kind of a sales presentation. I can do a screen share. I can use this as a leave behind, and I can show him that this is what the portal is going to look like, and here's all the stuff you can do. But as we go forward, that might not necessarily be the best approach for the onboarding. We're going to actually change it up. So for the onboarding processes, it might be, and again, this is totally subjective, so you can go ahead and think of your own use cases for this, feel free. There might be a need to cut it down a little bit, going, okay, now you've seen what we can do, what we can deliver, but we are going to start you off on a more limited view. And that's helpful because it helps people kind of get their feet wet a little easier. It helps them kind of digest what you're going to be doing with it. So again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to be drilling down on all of these, but safe to say that some of these can come later, potentially. And this feature set that I'm talking about is dictated from right here. So we've got the feature set area right here. Right now, we currently have everybody on this default feature set, which is everything enabled. So we're going to go ahead and create another feature set for when we onboard clients. We're literally going to call it the onboarding view of the portal, and you'll see what I mean in a sec. So we're going to go to our partner dropdown, and we're going to go to settings down at the very bottom. And this particular tenant is tied into a Synchro instance, but you know, doesn't even have to be. This is not strictly PSA related today. Neither is it. You know, it's pretty agnostic because this is a lot of CloudRadial focus. But we're going to skip all this stuff, and we're going to go right over here to configuration, and we're going to go to feature sets, the fourth one down. And this is how you create those different views of the portal, right? So when I go to feature sets, I'm going to see that from last time, I have the default one. Whenever you start up a new CloudRadial trial or tenant, you're only going to have one version of the portal, which is everything enabled. And we also have the simplified feature set. And we made this last time, and it was just an example to show you, hey, you can make different versions of the portal and you can cut it down. I'm going to be making yet another version. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. And like I said, these are basically just versions of the portal, so you can make as many of these as you want. So I'll be calling this one, let's say, my onboarding view, because I want to make sure that they have their kind of more limited options. And depending on what I'm giving the client, what I've promised, what I've set the expectation for, that's how I want to tailor my home page, because CloudRadial lets you choose kind of the experience that they first land on. We've got 4 different options. You've got the applications, which is kind of like your bookmarks, or kind of like your launch pad to their day. The knowledge base, of course, very helpful if you're trying to give them KB articles. The support home is very, very popular. I would say the most popular are definitely the applications in the support home. This is like your typical ticketing portal when you're starting them off and you want to give them a quick view to order stuff or put in tickets and all that. And then lastly, you can give them a training view. So if you want to start them off right on their training, there's that availability too. Typically, I'd go for support home, but I'm feeling bold. Why don't we go for applications today? Let's leave it at that. So past that, you can see that it's actually pretty simple. I mean, again, when you take some time, you kind of look through CloudRadial, you'll see all the different stuff it can do. And you know, if you already know, or if you've done a demo and stuff, you'll quickly realize, irrespective of me talking to you, what you guys want to use it for and what you think is useful. So you may go through and you go, yeah, you know what, we're not really going to use the university, and this requires an agent deployment to pull up some of the stuff, so we're not going to do that right now. We're not going to do the security stuff, and maybe we'll hold off on the assessments and the policies, and we'll just put in some reports, and we'll just kind of cut it up like this. We're just kind of trimming it down to the bare necessities. So I go, you know what? This is looking good. Actually, I'm going to change my mind right now, and I'm going to say universities on, but no quick starts, just courses. Why not? I like this. This is cool. So this is an example of actually something pretty common for a lot of people, is they'll start off on something like this, because what this is going to give you is a lot of those basic features that end users like and enjoy. And remember that that's going to be the main draw for most people. It's not going to be the reporting part, because reporting just comes from you. That's just stuff they just have to get. These company things like the application and the directories and the KBs and the ordering catalog and the courses, that's the more interactive stuff that they get a lot of usage out of, right? And if you're trying to ensure that you're getting a good adoption, you want to give a lot of stuff that is interactive and kind of cool. So a lot of this stuff is recommended to keep on, but there's nothing stopping you from just chopping stuff up like that. That's fine too. Important to note, I will state this and I will also demonstrate it in a second. Those that don't know is that all clients don't see the full feature set, right? So when I did this impersonation into Ricky's shop as an admin, currently they're on the default feature set, which, like I said, is everything enabled. They're going to see all of the options enabled. That's it, everything available in the feature set. An end user by default, right? If you were to look at what an end user sees versus somebody who is delegated as an administrator in CloudRadial, is only going to see up until university by default. So infrastructure down to account without having to do anything. There's no special setting you guys need to do. This stuff is automatically limited to just being visible to administrators. So in my current feature set chop up, right, I turned off infrastructure, for example. The end user wouldn't even know that because they don't see that to begin with. So this is just going to disappear for the administrator, this section right here. And just be keeping that in mind, because a lot of people have concerns going, whoa, this is a lot of stuff to show someone that's non-technical. And we're fully aware of that, right? We don't want to blast people with stuff. Obviously, CloudRadial is built on kind of a sandbox principle where you go as deep as you want, you kind of build stuff. But we're aware that, again, for the layman, they're not needing to see all this stuff. So I'm pretty happy with this because, like I said, it gives them a good basic. It gives the end user or the administrator some stuff, right? They get to see some Office 365 stuff, some reports, and maybe some road mapping things, so they get a gist of what's coming. This looks good to me. So I got that onboarding view now, great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my client list, and I could go in two different directions here. So I could either take one of my existing prospect companies and pretend like we won that deal and we're turning them into an onboarding, or I could just add a fresh one. It really would be the same process, but I'm just going to go ahead and add a fresh one because why not? So here's my theory, right? I have my PSA connected, right? This is how CloudRadial pulls in contacts and all that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and add a company into CloudRadial. So when I go in here, we're going to treat this section like a checklist. It's very important to understand what the fields are and what CloudRadial is kind of asking of you, because this will help you understand how to import people in. So I've got my PSA connected. I'm going to run a lookup on my PSA, and we're going to go ahead and pull in a company. So let's do, why don't we do Willoughby Council? That sounds cool. Identifier is locked in. I don't have Office 365 for them via my delegated admin, so I can't do a lookup because it's not hooked up to it. That's okay to skip, no worries. The name of the company is right here. That pre-fills. That's going to be the name that shows up in the company and in this list. And lo and behold, it's asking me what type of portal do I want to give them. So if you just mash submit without reading anything, you'll still get something that works. It's totally fine. But if you start to understand what these things are asking of you, it starts to make a lot more sense. So you're going to go, oh, onboarding view. Let's start them off on that guy. We're going to skip the portal logo URL. If I were to fill in the logo URL here, what would happen is they would have their image or their logo up here. I don't have that on hand. It's a fake company. We're going to skip that. These are a lot of other sync settings that for right now, for this demonstration, we'll skip. These are just, preference toggles. Another thing that's really important to know is that when you first add a client in, CloudRadial will not send an email saying, hey, you've been added to the portal, or welcome to CloudRadial, or anything like that. So we'll talk about how to kind of get them in the portal a little bit later in this webinar, but this right here scares a lot of people. Email message delivery, that's for communications features that, again, we'll talk about in a sec. It does not blast them. So even when you're playing around and you're just messing with data, feel free, right? It won't stop, it won't do anything. The PSA sync stuff's pretty good. So it looks like you may be tempted to hit submit, but if you look at our last webinar, what we did is we talked about the content area, which we'll briefly recap. And in the content area, we took a look at, let me go ahead and pop up another tab so I don't have to quit that process. We talked about how CloudRadial distributes the initial set of content, and that is largely coming from kind of a template distribution zone. So what dictates whether company A versus company B sees these tickets versus those tickets versus these tickets is this area, right? We have all these different sections that control the content within CloudRadial, right? And I'm minimizing for simplistic view, right? Whether it's the articles or the courses or the dashboards, this is the area where you build it from the top level down. And what we did last time is we talked about looking at the initial sample stuff and telling CloudRadial, hey, these articles are going to go to all companies and every user in every company, or this set of articles goes to all companies and only administrators. And our university courses, for example, this HIPAA one only goes to healthcare companies, and so on and so forth. So we kind of have this like company group dynamic going where we've put a bunch of templated content into here. All tenants start with this content, so you should have this regardless in your portal. And we've told it where to go based off of company groups. And when I'm putting in a client in here, including my onboarding one, I want to make sure that I fill in the identifiers, and also I go to the next tab and I do that due diligence where I tell CloudRadial what stuff they get, because this is how it's going to assign them that initial provisioning of content. So they're going to get stuff tagged for all, which you're going to see there's a lot of stuff, right? Basic article, this one, these courses. And maybe in this case, this company is also a 365 company, right? They use 365 stuff. So I'll go ahead and just drag it over. So as I match this stuff over and I keep telling CloudRadial, they get this stuff, they get this stuff. As soon as I hit submit, it's going to read this content area and provision them out anything tagged for that group. That's how it initially provisions the portal. So I'm good with this, right? We're not going to flip too much through this. I'm good. Let's go through it. Cool. Customizations. We don't really need this right now. This is a lot of specializations that may come in handy later, such as if we want their search to be going to a different website, which this is FastPath. We'll talk about this at a later webinar, I think probably on the next one. And the user profile info is another one that most people skip. That's if you want to have a specific thing pop up for that company when you click on their name right here. For me, it's fine, right? There's just some generic links right there just to have a little bit of a filled out area. The last tab over is integrations. For the sake of this demo, there's nothing to do. These are if you have additional integrations hooked up that CloudRadial can work with, kind of like the PSA, right? Where we have the PSA lookup to tell us what company in your PSA is the company in CloudRadial. That's how we sync in the users and pull in the tickets and all that good stuff. Same idea, right? If you have Adigi or Avic or Data or any one of these guys, you would do the lookup and do the same thing, right? So if you don't have any of this, you can basically skip these two tabs. So really the most critical tabs when you onboard and when you put a client in here are the details for sure, because that's going to be the initial set, and then at minimum the groups. And when I hit submit, the idea for all of CloudRadial is that you should be able to provision a client pretty quick within 5 seconds, right? Obviously I'm doing taking my sweet time explaining it, but here we go. So I've got Willoughby Council added in here. Their PSA ID is locked in, their feature set is set, their groups are set, so now they should be pretty much ready to go. Not a deal breaker if you have to retroactively change one of the existing ones. It's not a huge ordeal. If for whatever reason I wanted to make a change to Jeff's company that is already on the default feature set and put them on the onboarding view instead, we're just going to hit this edit all pencil. Too crazy. And we can just click on one or multiple companies and make the changes right here. So I can change this feature set, for example, retroactively, and I can also retroactively add or remove Jeff's company to different groups. So I'm pretty good here. So if we look, what's happening as soon as you add them is CloudRadial will be syncing with the PSA and if connected Office as well, it'll be pulling in the users. So theoretically, this should be good to go. And let's
okay, Ricky, let me ask you something. Alonzo Matonia asked a question, which was if all was left selected on the left-hand side, if all left was selected, will that pull in everything?
So you're talking about the company group all, I assume, this one?
He's talking under groups, yeah.
Yeah, so this is something I've actually talked to some people about. All seems to confuse people, and we might want to look at changing that, because this isn't saying that they get all stuff. This is saying they get stuff in content tagged for all companies. So you can delegate this thing to go, this one goes to all people, this one goes to all people, this one only goes to healthcare people. So if you leave all on, all it's going to do is make sure that the stuff tagged for all is going to get there. That's it. So the answer is no. You still have to put in the additional groups that go to other stuff. And you make these, so ultimately you could slap all on all this stuff and make it work that way. But yeah, again, a lot of people get tricked out by that all nomenclature, because it's not saying they get everything and that's it. That just means they get stuff tagged for that one group. But yeah, so we're going to look at Willoughby Council. So we're going to check them out and make sure we did good. And again, in a real life scenario, if I were doing this for a real client, I was onboarding them and I promised them I'd spin up a portal in 5 seconds, it would be like this, right? Boom, 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 that one, onboarding view, they get this, skip, skip, done, submit, done. So obviously I'm doing it lightning fast, but the idea is that you can really do this stuff and throw in clients here like 5 seconds, 10 seconds tops. When I got Willoughby Council loaded in, I'm going to give it a check. I want to make sure that I am looking good. And this is a big part of the onboarding process, making sure that what you first pull in is correct. So we're going to click on the 3 dots by their name, and we're going to go impersonate admin to give it a look. So what are we seeing? Well, we see their name. That looks good. We see some applications. I like that. We see that their menu's cut down, just like we told it to. That's good, right? LOMG, this other tab has the full feature set. You can see that sure enough, they have a lot less options. So we've got kind of a more compact view. And what I promised before, right, is that the reason that you can click on these dots and impersonate admin is you can see that full admin view. You can also see the user view. So you can see what I was talking about before, that if I impersonate user, the end user for them is only going to see the first 4 tabs, unless I cut one of these out in the feature set, but I didn't. So we've got an admin and a user in Willoughby, and they look quite different, right? Just a little bit. So admin just sees usage, compliance, and account, whereas the end user doesn't. So we've got a pretty good initial set. And they also have all the content they need, which is excellent. So if I were to click around the portal, again, I want to have a good experience. So you want to try to not have blank areas, because that makes people wonder why you gave it to them, wonder what that area could entail. So even if you have a super basic application set or super basic knowledge base area, you want to make sure that you have just a little bit of stuff, right? I'm not saying you have to go crazy and develop all this out for them, but something to give them an idea of like, oh, we could put our own articles in here, because that's how you get the stickiness with a portal. Again, this isn't even a CloudRadial thing. This is just in general. If you give someone an idea, people are inherently better editors than they are creators. So if you give them something, they're much more likely to tell you, that's crap, here's what I want instead, rather than giving them a big blank canvas and going, what do you want in there? Because people choke on that, right? So this is good. We've given them initial bits of everything. We've given them some messages, we've given them their ticket catalog and all that kind of stuff. And should they have tickets, they would be able to see those too. And this is a fake company, so they don't. But good, this looks good. So theoretically, I'm ready to onboard them. Now, what does that actually mean? So we've set them up in CloudRadial. Now let's talk about what happens in real life, right? In real life, your onboarding is not just CloudRadial. It's not just a client portal. It's a series of processes with your technical team, you're gathering information, you're running reports, you're signing papers. There's lots of stuff happening. And for the client, like a puppy, right? It's a new home, it's new smells, it's new everything. They're frazzled, I promise you. A lot of people explain and they complain about onboarding processes in general because there's so much disparity in how to do it. This can be your anchor, right? Because this is a place you can always drive them back and look, no matter what, if I'm going to tell you that, oh, here's your billing portal and here's this and here's this and here's this, CloudRadial can be their anchor going, okay, this is going to be our portal, our go-between. I will put all of your necessary links to your stuff in here, right? So it doesn't have to be just Office 365. You may want to use this as your jumping off point. Your points of contact. Maybe you want to write a KB right at the beginning going, okay, instead of just portal information, how to use it, you want to put in their account manager's name if they have one, or like a support number or anything like that. So they have that right there. So just like we talked about with the puppy, you were reinforcing that good behavior from the beginning. You're saying, hey, every time we go to the portal, we check that first, because that is where I'm going to try to make that my most organized thing. And this is what a lot of people struggle with, because it's one of those things that, again, people have trouble getting adoption from the portal, but this is the reason why. If you have all these disparate methods going, oh, email so-and-so, and then go to this PDF, and then I'll email you this, and then we'll call us to get this, then of course the client's going to start off with bad behavior. Even when you onboard them, they're going to be frazzled, they're not going to know where to go, and they're just going to do whatever is the path of least resistance, versus putting them in a organized process that is going to allow you to scale it, because you can now control every client gets the same article, every client gets your initial set of stuff. It's easier for you to manage, and it's easier for you to reinforce. So whenever we look at this kind of stuff, again, we've given Willoughby Council their initial base set. And again, as you kind of talk to them, there's lots of different facets and areas that you may want to take it a step further. So you've got a lot of sample content that comes with CloudRadial, and it's intended that even if we don't know you guys personally, most of the stuff in here is meant to at least get you a good start. And like I said, people are editors, they're not necessarily creators. So if you want to go ahead and take a step beyond right from the get-go and already find out, well, what are their line of business applications? Do you want to add some of those for there to make it feel more like their home? Do you want to throw in a couple tickets that you know that are really for supporting their services that maybe are not part of your general ticket catalog, or how can you make this a little bit easier? And I think in the PDF guide that I'm going to send, or that you're going to get after, you're going to see that there's kind of some specific areas that I recommend that we customize, right? So if you can, the applications certainly are one of them for line of business stuff. And you may not know this because obviously they're brand new clients, so you may not know what they use, but this one, the KB articles, the university courses, and like I was saying before, we're not living in a bubble. We're not saying CloudRadial is the end all be all world of your client experience because there's so much stuff going on, but try to make it the center point. So when you run other assessments or anything else, try to turn that stuff back into an opportunity to reintroduce them to the portal to make sure that they use it. Last time we briefly talked about this, but CloudRadial, for those that don't know, has a report archiving section, right? And all that this is, it's under compliance and reports, is a section where you can add in folders to hold anything you want, right? So when you go in here, you go, okay, I want to add an archive. Like traditionally what people do is, we'll talk about this more in the last webinar on Grow when we do QBR stuff, but when you're first onboarding them, again, they're frazzled, they want to know where they can find this, short of just putting that in knowledge base articles and whatnot. You may want to put like, okay, maybe I'm going to forward in the assessment that we ran from this tool, or we can run assessments in CloudRadial itself as well. I'm skipping that not because I want to, but because it's a whole teaching lesson that's going to be good for the academy, I think. But let's say you want to put in some assessments in here from another tool, or maybe you ran some network audits or something like that, and you want them to be available. You spin up a folder for their assessments. You can set retention policies. You can set alert triggers if you want. You don't need to, right? These are just folders. And all of a sudden you've got a folder in their portal where they can go in, they can get their basic stuff, and they can go see all of the other things that you're doing. So in their assessment folder, you can either add that guy manually or whatever else you do manually, or if you want, if you're going to be doing a recurring thing, and this is just the first of many, each one of these folders has their own individual email addresses. For every client, and every folder has their own email addresses. So setting up those auto forwards, making sure those are good to go, will ensure that you have a place to put their information, reinforce that portal usage, and make sure that they're having a really good time and that your experience is clean. Your onboarding is easy. They go to one place, they get it all there, anything else is focused there, and that's going to help make it scalable. So if you can do all this stuff, great, fantastic. If you want to throw in some custom apps, let's do one for kicks, right? Here's a really crappy example, but why not? It has to be, I guess I should mention this because a lot of people have this question. I know it's going to come up. How do you add in CloudRadial content for one specific company? Because when I talk about CloudRadial, anyone who's ever talked to me via demo or onboarding or even existing clients will kind of see that there's lots of different ways to skin the cat in CloudRadial, right? There's 15 different ways to do the same thing, and that's just the nature of a sandbox thing. There's really two ways that I recommend in general on how you customize stuff, and I think we should talk about that. So I had mentioned that initially when you put up a client, you're going to do that from the content areas, and like when you set them up with the baseline portal, right? And that's where you're going to start with the onboarding. And that baseline portal is created and managed and defined by the initial set of content in this area. So for lack of a better term, this is a template zone, right? You want to create the basic stuff as much as possible, and sure, some stuff like this Teams course may go to specific types of clients, but generally speaking, it's a template going to a specific type. We're talking about one client at a time now. So in my example, let's take maybe the KBs, since the articles are the first thing. Let's say I needed to drop a custom article just for Willoughby. What's the best route to do that? Because I want to make sure that they're having a good time in their onboarding. Your two options are either to create it from back here, so the content area, and push it down to just that one client, or to create it just in this one client's area. This is ultimately the easier way. The way you would do this is you impersonate an admin within that company, just like I did for Willoughby Council. And once I'm in this zone, I just click on add. And functionally what I'm doing here is, like I said, we're just creating a test article just for them. So we'll do that really quick. And this is going to exist just on Willoughby Council. It's going to just show up here, and it's going to be just visible to their users. And you can still choose the different levels of users and whatnot, but that's the gist. So you can see that despite the fact that I have the content, kind of templated content in here, I also have my one-off customized version. And from back here, if I refresh, you're not going to see any test thing appear or anything like that. You're not going to get visibility on that, which is a good and a bad thing, because that's going to keep your content area clean, focused on your templates, focused on your high-level stuff, and it's going to keep your companies focused on their stuff. Some people don't like this, right? Because a lot of people like to have a singular view into everything. So that's where Okay, maybe you don't want to do it like this. Maybe you want to create everything from one area and be able to pick and choose and control all that kind of stuff. Because the downside to this is that should you ever want to modify test, or you think you need to change this up at any point, it does lengthen the management process. Because to get to this article, you'd have to go impersonate, you'd have to find that article, and then you'd have to edit it, which is a little bit of steps, right? Versus creating it from back here, which would allow you to quickly go to one area, click into the folder, click the article, and just edit it directly, which a lot of people prefer. The downside to doing this is that if you start doing this for 2 clients or 3 clients, fine. If you start doing it for 50 or 100 clients, what's going to happen pretty quickly is you're going to see a lot of, hey, this one goes to everyone. This one's just Willoughby's. This one's just ABC clients. This one's just this one. And you're going to have lots of specific folders for specific clients. And this area can get a little unwieldy. It'll work. There's no problem with that. It's not going to break, but you'll see what I mean. So I'll show you how we would do that. We're going to go ahead and add a content package or a folder. CloudRadial is going to ask me, what am I trying to make? I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to make a set of articles. And in this case, like I said, we're going to do it for Willoughby Council. So I'll just copy their name. And I'm going to say, these are Willoughby Council articles. Always good to keep your naming convention for your content packages really simple, so it's easy to understand what's in them. User groups, we're going to let everyone at Willoughby Council see it. We could also do admin only, or later on, we could say specific, customized groups. We're going to skip the description. We're going to skip these buttons. And in this case, we're even going to skip the company groups, right? Because these are specifically for Willoughby. They're not for all, they're not for healthcare, they're not for prospect companies, they're just for Willoughby. So we're going to hit submit. Now what I've done is I've created a folder that's empty that I can create my articles directly in here, and I can push them out to just the one company. So if you go back here, you'll see what I mean, right? This one is going to sit back here. It's not been told to go to any one company group because we purposely told it not to. So to get it to go to Willoughby, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the settings option in the folder, and we're going to use the subscribers button. So a little out of the way because we purposely don't want people accidentally doing this because it can be, kind of create a mess if you don't know what you're doing. But this is how I can target it to one specific company rather than by group. So I can do it like this. And that's it. So now if I create articles in here and I push them out, then Willoughby's going to get them. And we've achieved the exact same thing. So if I go in here and I push, they're going to get them. If I go over here and create them, they're going to get them. And that's something very common. Like I said, when you first start them up, if you already know kind of some custom content you're going to make, whether it's custom stuff from the articles or tickets or anything like that, it all applies the same way. So again, imagine making yourself a custom Willoughby courses or a custom Willoughby menus, which is the applications, same thing, or just impersonating, right? Whatever way you prefer. So what I was going to say, and I think we should come back to, is how do we get them in there? So now in theory, we've got this onboarded client in the sense that we've got them loaded up, we've got them having sample content, we've got their users ready to go because these have been synced in from the PSA and or Office. So they're in here, right? CloudRadial, you don't need to create username and passwords. These are pulled in from our sync sources. So whenever they're in here, the next part is to get them in here. And I mentioned earlier that when we set them up in CloudRadial, they're not going to get an email saying, hey, welcome to the portal. So how do you do that? How do you get them in here? And how do you make this a big official launch? You got to kick this puppy off. So that's something else that we don't talk about in the portal itself, but we offer support for. So if you go to your tenant, your main tenant, and you go to the one where you have access to the partner dropdown, right? So your main MSP partner, head on over to your account area, and you're going to see a lot of useful stuff in here. It's kind of like your dashboard as the partner. And there's a specific section in here for the deployment blueprint right under here. You're going to see that option down here at all times. If you're in trial and just checking it out, you're going to see this onboarding checklist. And one of the things is this deployment blueprint. This is the same thing. Just gives you a quicker view if you're in trial, right? And what this is really, really good for is for talking about what we're doing right now, which is how do you actually get it out, right? We know how to set it up. It's not that bad. There's just a series of click, 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 set. Cool. Willoughby's ready to go, but putting them in here is a different matter. This deployment blueprint, when you pop it open, is intended to help you understand the whole journey of CloudRadial. It's not something you guys need to study or print out necessarily or anything like that. It's just going to give you a high-level overview of the general gist of how it all goes. So if you really take a look at this, a lot of this stuff is self-evident. We've talked about this in webinars. We talk about this in the academy. It's a lot of reinforcement of the same stuff. So if you examine a kind of our 5-stage pass at this, right, there's a lot of stuff from when you're first onboarding and you're going, oh, is this tool worth it? What can it do? These are just checklists to help you do that. The second thing that we do past your interest in our product is basically going, well, how do I set it up, right? The feature sets and the company groups, and did you create a custom KB and courses? We have training on how to do all that stuff, kind of like what we briefly went over in this webinar. But the next part's what I'm talking about right now, which is how do you get buy-in, both buy-in and also the portal launch? How do you do that? We tried to make this easier for you because we know that there's lots of logistic questions. So let's take Willoughby again. Willoughby's technically ready to go. How do I let them know how to submit a ticket? How do I let them know how to get in? What are the benefits of the portal? Why do they even want to use this? This blueprint has a lot of resources in here that are there to help you at least get an idea. So for example, on the ticket submissions, right? You want to use it as a ticketing portal. You want to get them a good idea of how to do it. There's a guide in here in this blueprint that you click on it, and it's going to give you a direct download to a sample piece of content. So I think this one's a Word doc that's currently downloading. There it is. So if you look at it, right, this is giving you something that you're not starting from scratch. You can start off right there going, boom. You put a logo, you want to turn this into a PDF, you want to design it better. It's got some screenshots that you can control F and, replace some stuff, but it gives them a guide on how to do some of this stuff, right? How it works, where do you do it? You want maybe you want an overview guide for an administrator to understand their whole deal, right? So how does it all kind of work in general? Or maybe give certain people the administrative overview for stuff, right? This might be a good one too, where it shows them how to log in and all the different tabs and what they do and all that kind of stuff. So you can trim this based off your feature set and everything like that too. So lots of good stuff in here as far as resources to go with that launch. The other thing too, between the buy-in phase and launch phase, which these are kind of intended to go hand in hand for this onboarding part, is also like, okay, well, how do you introduce that? So have you created email lists? And CloudRadial is not an email sending platform. We do help you create the right emails because we help you pull together the lists of contacts and stuff that need to be in there, but we're not going to be able to generate that email for you to say, hey, this is the portal, this is how you get in, and all that kind of stuff. So within this blueprint, we talk about the different things you can do. So it shows you, hey, here's how to create some email lists. Here are sample pre-launch emails and launch emails. You can get these too, and these are HTML. So you can pop these into, I think you can work these even into like Outlook, but if you have an email sending platform like MailChimp or HubSpot or stuff, this should work pretty good. So it's the same idea. You click it, it direct downloads it for you, which it's currently doing. I think it's a zip file, yep. And then when you pop that open, it should give you the gist of it. Let me show you that too. Let me open up that index file. Something like this, right? So similar idea where obviously you feel free to customize and do stuff, but it's in there. You just drop your logo in there, change some stuff, and then make this go to your portal and you're good to go. So lots of ideas for you to start off in that. So this blueprint, I mention it because it's not strictly necessary. Some of you may have a design touch, or you may already have ideas on how to do this and how to best communicate, but certainly will give you a leg up, or at least ideas. Like I said, we're not looking to be perfect. We're looking to make you guys, our editors, to go, I like that, I don't like that. That'll be good. Lastly, I think we want to talk really quickly about some communications things within the portal. So just like you saw for Willoughby, theoretically, you're able to get them in there as far as you put all their content in there. Now you have an idea of what supplementary content to do to actually pull those lists that I mentioned and make sure that you actually get the details from there. CloudRadial has, under the partner tab, a marketing subsection. And this is a good one to kind of get familiar with, especially when you're first starting out and you're doing the onboardings, because here are a lot of those communications features that CloudRadial does, including building of the marketing lists. So as of right now, if I were to go in here, right, let's say I load up my 3 or 4 guinea pig clients that I'm going to be onboarding into my portal. Within this marketing tab, I can go ahead and build my list, right? And you're going to see something kind of familiar. It's going to be using our company groups and user groups to build us that list. So if I wanted a list of, let's just do all clients, I can tell CloudRadial, hey, give me a list of just every single user in every single company. And you can quickly get the idea of what this could be used for, right? Later on, as you kind of get more familiar and kind of build out this product, you can build out lists of admins and G Suite and this and that. And later on, this can be used for anything from product updates to, outage messages and all that kind of stuff. It gives you the list you need very quickly. So there's a lot more options. These two will come into play when we talk about the planner and the QBRs, which we're not doing so much today. You can also specify just from contacts found in Office, because we know a lot of times the PSAs have some junk in there. And then we do have an integration directly with MailChimp, which is kind of neat. And what that will do is it will actually update MailChimp with your contacts in there. So you'll have all the different tagged lists for your whoever joins in, admin and all that kind of stuff will automatically be updated. So the end result of that is if you were to send a campaign now, it would go to that. If you add more companies into CloudRadial, the MailChimp list updates, so you can send out more stuff and it'll be relevant and you won't have to go back and forth. but not a deal breaker. I mean, right now, again, if you're just looking to get started, you might say, hey, I want to send a list to all clients. If you just hit submit, what it's going to do is it's going to tally that guy up for you, which there shouldn't be very many people. All right, built completely. And we're going to be able to grab that list, and it's going to be able to give it to us in a CSV. So we grab that, and then we can probably put that into pretty much any email sending platform. And there we go. So now I've got my list of contacts to put anywhere. I've got my emails from the deployment where I can write my own, and I've kind of got a good target. And again, most of you will probably have some kind of channels that you're already used to talking to your clients through, but we want to help. So last two things for this webinar. So the other thing is that we're going to talk about is, again, in the theme of communications, making sure that they have as much help up front as possible, because now we've given them the sample stuff, right? We've given them the baseline portal. We've given them a way to see all their other reports and stuff from other tools. We've given them, potentially some customized stuff. We've given them the way to get into the portal as far as messages and welcoming them. Something that's really nice, I mentioned earlier, like some contact info, and there should be probably a little bit of hand holding whenever they're first starting out, because again, like a puppy, you're going to want to reinforce behavior and make sure that they have an out, right? It's okay if they kind of buck a little bit because it's to be expected. It's a new thing. So short of just dropping an article and hoping they see it, for example, and saying like, oh, maybe we want them to see the contact us article. Another thing you can do from the marketing section that we're in right now under partner marketing, the same place we built the lists, is drop a banner on there. And this is something I see a lot of people do, and I really like where they're doing with this, because what you can do from here is we're going to spin up a banner, and we're going to do this one, maybe like welcome to your new portal. And we're going to drop some text on there. Maybe we're going to say, hey, welcome to this, welcome to the portal, here's your contact or info, and we're going to give them the old 555, and then maybe, or email directly at support.company.com, right? So again, we're obviously expecting them to use the portal. We want them to have help, but we don't want to deny what will happen, right? We want to make sure that if they tap out, if they need help, we're not going to say no, got to use the portal. Because a lot of people, we're not going to be so inflexible. And if you want to, if you have anything else, right, maybe we want to give them the old link to an article or something like that, we can, that gives them more details. And you can choose where this goes in the portal. So maybe you want that right before they log in. So you want to say, hey, if you don't have an account, email this person or check us out here. Or maybe you want to put that right on their homepage or on the ticket page. And right now in this onboarding case, we're using this as a use case for more of like a welcome. But certainly this has applications a lot for stuff like outages and whatnot. So again, this is going to be a really useful feature for preventing an influx of tickets when Microsoft is down or something else. A lot of that comes from this onboarding phase, making sure that they have that good behavior from the get-go, because that way they get the understanding that I go to the portal, I know what's going on first and foremost. That's my source of truth. So a lot of these have other applications, and you can just choose the different colors too. So maybe welcome to the new portal's green or yellow or red or whatever. You can also choose how long to run it. So if you're going to do a welcome one for only a certain amount of time, that's cool. Or if you want to use your user groups and company groups to dictate who gets it, that's something else too. In this case, we're just going to say the old everyone and all. So we basically have just created an easy, simple banner saying welcome, gives them a quick trigger for help, and it goes to everyone and it runs indefinitely. I didn't put a date, so that means indefinite. So cool. So now Willoughby Council has been invited to the portal via emails. They've been told where to go. They've been told how to access it. And when they go to their homepage, they're going to get a nice message saying, hey, welcome, right? Here's this. And the more banners you put, the more they'll stack under here. So they get that information right there. They can go to the link and it'll take them right to it. So that's a good reinforcement and help that they start off with. The last bit to this webinar is all this stuff that we talked about is well and good. We say we, as if I wasn't talking to you guys one-sidedly. All the stuff that I talked about today is pretty good, but the only thing that I think really comes down to it also is availability. So this is a big discussion for a lot of people, that how do you put this portal out in front of them, right? And it's not as easy as I made it look, right? Where you say, here's the portal link and that's it, because a lot of you guys will have different versions of how you want to put out that portal. Some of you may want to do it just like we did on this webinar, which is cloud-based, right? Where you go to here's the link, here's a login, enjoy. Other people will want to do a desktop application and know that you can do a desktop application in here, right? So one of the things that you can do in CloudRadial, if you prefer to run it like within the system tray and you want to get all the benefits of that, you certainly can. Under partner and settings, you will need to create your desktop application. There's a spot under here for configuration. We went to feature sets just earlier in this webinar, and we can go in here and we can build out our desktop application branded to us. So this is like, you know, again, the traditional thing where you're able to define your logos and do hotkey stuff and, you know, get diagnostics and all that stuff. Definitely worth the play. But the end point is that you're going to get functionally the same exact experience, just in a desktop browser. So I actually happen to have one right here. So let's just pull it up. And you're going to see that pretty much, there's this one, super big, there it is, right, is same idea. Running out of here, a lot of people like to do something like this because, again, it makes the availability a little bit easier. So I pulled up my taskbar, I hope that's visible. And you can see that this is pretty much what a lot of people traditionally think of, where they right click and they can go to links, or they can go open a ticket and you can do little icons and whatnot from there, right? So I bring this up because that may affect how you introduce it. Some people may want to do it like that, which means that you may want to modify that email to say, not just go to the link, but check your taskbar. You now have a link for this, or you now have a thing. So that may be one way. Another deployment that's very popular recently, because we just came out with this, is the Teams deployment. So if your clients use Office 365 and they use Teams, you can actually have the portal running directly within their Teams, right? And that one's pretty clever, because what it's going to do is it's going to automatically log it in. I guess I could show you because I have my Teams open. It's going to automatically log them in to the portal directly within their Teams, and it's going to get pinned over here. And the idea is if I go to another tab, you can see it, and I pop back over here, it's going to just auto log me in because it knows who I am. It's going to match me. This is popular whenever people hook up Office. So that's another really good deployment. So again, be thinking about that, how that's going to change your dynamic for introducing the portal, right? Do you want to tell them it's going to be available on all three? Is it going to be one or the other? What works best for you and your clients is obviously up to you. The Teams thing, I will say, is pretty similar to the desktop application, where in the desktop application, I said, we go to partner settings, and then you kind of do some stuff in desktop app, right? You build it out. The Teams app is similar in that it's going to be right here. It says preview for now. And when you go in here, it's something that you can build out, right? You can similarly, right, you can choose the logos and whatnot on there, and you can choose the descriptions. And then there's instructions on how to get all this stuff kind of out into the Teams tenants themselves as well. So I encourage you guys to read that. Look for these blue check marks in CloudRadial. If you're curious about all this stuff I'm talking about, I know I'm going very quick. Most of the time, these things have these blue check marks that link to our KBs on how to do it, how to deploy them, and all that kind of stuff. So be on the lookout, because it'll break down every single step on a technical level of how to push these out. But I think that's a good overview for today's onboard. So brief recap, and then we'll take some questions, I think. For onboarding, it's really about putting out that baseline portal, right? Just like we talked about in the PowerPoint, right? It's about putting out that baseline portal, making sure that they have something to work off of, and keeping on it, keeping on the idea that we're going to expand this out. We're going to build more stuff. We're going to give them the ability. We're going to make them want to add their own articles and courses, because that's the stickiness that people get. And for the sake of consistency and simplicity, we're going to take everything else that we're doing that doesn't exist in CloudRadial and try to make as much of that as possible exist in CloudRadial, and making that single focal point, because that makes their experience good, and that makes their expectations of you kind of come realized. We talked last time about the idea of transparency and showing the client every single day what you're doing for them. And you're not only doing that, but you're also making it super easy to work with you. You're making it transparent. So in 3 years down the line, they can still see the assessment number one they did for you, and they go, look at how far we've come. So it's really neat to be able to store all that in one place and keep it all organized. Then of course, the marketing stuff, right? So don't forget about that blueprint and some of the helpful guides in here. And we're still producing some of these too. So if you guys have any ideas, please feel free to share them with us, because we're always on the lookout to make that deployment easier, and how we can help kind of make it easier for you. And then of course, the provisioning and putting it out in front of clients, whether it's the Teams app or desktop and all that. So whew, what a conversation. Safi, I know I leave a very generous 6 minutes to questions, so please, if anything is there, let me know. If not, that's cool too.
There are a couple that just started coming in. Let me look at them real quick. But as always, you've done a fabulous job. And it's funny because I always learn something new as well.
Many of our people in our company are like, how does CloudRadial work? It's like, we'll watch it.
Larry, I love Larry French's comment. He says, take a breath, Ricky. Good job.
Thanks, Larry.
Patrick O'Connor asked a question. Does the app double as an agent to send metrics to our CloudRadial instance? And that one I don't quite understand.
So that's a really good question. So CloudRadial has two separate agents, for better or worse. Most people agree worse, but I know why we do it, so I'll show you. When we refer to the agent, there isn't an application, or again, I will use our own terminology. There is a data gathering agent that we use that we talked about last time to pull in information under the infrastructure tab and endpoints. And this is used for, again, most of the reporting stuff. And this is what a lot of people kind of want to see, kind of RMM-ish, where it pulls in the stuff and it showcases like, oh, I had put this on my computer last time. It shows my configuration stuff. It shows a little bit of details as to my location. Don't creep on me, but this kind of deal. And there's this, right? And this is used to work on policies, which we'll probably end up talking about again more during the future webinar on Grow. And then there's the desktop application. Now the desktop application, right, is what I showed you that runs out of the system tray. Those are two completely separate things. The reason they're separate is because there's some technical problems there, which is basically when you put a data gathering agent on there, it has to report that information back into the correct company in CloudRadial. So that one requires a specific company ID. That's how it works, right? Whereas the desktop application is, it just gets logged into. So it is just a simple exe, anyone can log into it. So the desktop application does do some very baseline version of that, but nowhere near as intricate as the agent. If you run the desktop application, you can actually see what it gathers under help and about, and it's some basic stuff, but this actually should pull into the tickets as well. So the computer name and the model and the serial and all that kind of stuff and where it's coming from should get pulled in. So kind of, a little bit basic, but not as nearly as much as the desktop or the data agent. Oh.
And another thing, we had an interesting question. It's and I know I'm messing up the name, but Fazi Bazid. Do we do one-on-one onboardings? And I'm going to answer that. At CloudRadial, we are not going to let you fail. We've got a tremendous amount of support here. You've got your academy, which Ricky has done, and it is fabulous. And we also have a fabulous support team to give you advice and to help you if you get stuck or to help you if you have issues with setup. We do have a fast track program, which is $2,500, where we will provide a coach to you who will kind of follow you through onboarding your first customer. So that's an option. You know, and I hope that that answers your question, but you know, we're here for you. And for you, I would suggest, you know, at least starting out with an onboarding session or a support session, and you know, let us see if we can help you do it on your own. But we do have fast track available if you do want to go that route.
Yeah, the onboarding call, for those that don't know, right, there's, I think it's radials.io/onboarding. We always use this radials.io prefix, is a really good place to get started. So whether you're an existing client that's kind of lost or whether you're a new client looking to get started, we obviously, for a lot of people, they do a demo, but that really helps to kind of set the stage, because what I do with a lot of people, me and my team, like to start off by not diving into all this stuff. And that's something that's like, we're aware of this, right? It's a lot of stuff. And even during this webinar, like Larry was joking, I mean, it's true. I literally have to get out of breath because it's like, ooh, look at all this stuff. But when we talk to you guys one-on-one, even in any one of these scenarios, it always comes down to like, look, what are you trying to get out of this, right? How can we make this as easy as possible? Which is why I started this webinar going, let's talk feature sets. So advice to you, right? Schedule an onboarding call, right? That one's free. Like, don't worry about that. Forget about costs and just figure out what you want out of the portal. And let's talk about it. And we'll talk about how to get you set up. And for most people, lucky for me and my team, they'll be able to kind of point them into that direction and realize, yep, I can do this. I have a clear scope, and they don't get too sidetracked by all the shiny stuff in here. And for people that are like, okay, I understand it, but I'm going to need help, then I think the fast track is really worth it, because obviously you have someone like me that moves around like a maniac helping you out, going click, 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 click. So hopefully that clears a little bit.
And then will you answer this for me, because I'm typing more than saying, but I have a question from Marcus Antigua that says, is there any plan to allow selective sync of users from Office 365 instead of sync of all users? And I think he may just need an explanation of exclusions or how to do the exclusions.
That's a good question, and you may be aware of this already, but I'll kind of talk about that really briefly. So when CloudRadial brings in Office details, right? If we take a look at the LOMG company in here specifically, I believe this one's tied in. So this one's an example of an Office identifier that's tied in. Side note, I know I didn't mention this, but if you don't have Office, like you don't do delegated tenancy or anything like that, you don't need to. When you're in an individual company, you can go to their specific, like Willoughby Council, if we go to their account and settings, as long as you have an admin within that specific company or you have an admin account, you can tie it in. It works the same way. And whenever you have that tied in, you have the ability to kind of mess around with their Office 365 sync settings. And by default, right, they're right down here. They, CloudRadial's usual behavior is to go only those with licenses, only those that are active, right? So not those that are unlicensed and disabled. Now, taking that a step further, if we look at the usage area, you can actually see that there's a license section. And theoretically, this is a poor example because this one's just one. You can also start to say like, oh, well, you know what? I also don't want to sync users that have this license, right? So we can say exclude from sync. And what'll happen here is if we do that, they'll slowly start getting picked off because the logic is that if they're left on there and they have no licenses attached, then they'll stop syncing. So you can kind of get around that way. In your case, I think more of what you're looking for is like when you add in, you say almost like an inclusion rule, only these types. And it's something we've talked about before. I think it's not off the table, but I don't think the development team is like strictly working on that. But it could be something we'll see before the end of the year. I don't know, because a lot of people have questions on those types of sync settings, but that's what you can do for right now.
Okay, Ricky, and another one on the desktop agent, because I'm not as good at answering these questions when they get real detailed, but regarding the desktop agent, is there any issue with deploying this via group policy in Active Directory?
It'll be difficult because it's not an MSI, it's an EXE. So if you had like a way to convert that, sure, but I don't think you can with an EXE, unless I'm wrong. It's usually preferred that you deploy it out via RMM because RMMs take that a lot easier, but yeah.
And then Farzan asked, we'd like to have the desktop app to be able to be pinned to the taskbar and also opened that way by our clients. Is that possible?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's what I think. Yeah.
There's nothing to do within CloudRadial because obviously we just give you the EXE, but I think there's probably a way that you deploy it to make that a thing in the first place, to have that auto pin. I will say that is possible. I am too ignorant in my technical skills to do so, but I think that's something.
I think that it does that, but we'll have to get back to you on that one. And then Felicia, hello Felicia, asked, I know, is it possible to deploy using GPO if they use PowerShell startup script?
The agent or the application?
I think she's talking about the. I think she's talking about the.
What we probably need, we've had a lot of people ask for this, is we probably just need to work on developing the MSI for it. Because again, from what I'm aware of, I'm pretty sure it's just MSI for GPO, but we only have the EXE for right now. So no.
Okay, and then some of these things, some of y'all are asking some questions about that may need to more go into support. Like when the desktop app is open, the taskbar icon for it is blank, even though we have it all configured. We want it to be our logo. I mean, I know that that's possible. You just need to put in a support ticket at support@cloudradial.com and get them to help you. I think that's about it as far as questions. One thing that I do want to remind you is we kind of go through this with Ricky. You know, as you can see, CloudRadial is much more than a collection of tools that work together. There really is a strategy here, and you know, I really encourage each one of you to explore this more, which I know that you're doing by at least watching this webinar. But we do have the land, onboard, manage, and grow guides available online now. And you can simply just go to www.cloudradial.com/LOMG. And they are there ready for download. And I think that Kinley is including the how to onboard today. That guide in, yeah, when we send the video out to you.
Yeah, and it'll cover largely what I talked about today. Because again, with the goal of all this stuff, like I said, this is not so much one of those like, oh, here's a thought process and the trick to sales. This is more so for people that are looking to use CloudRadial and really leverage a good strategy, and we're telling you more so how to do it. So again, it's not so buy this,
Well, and
lose 10
also the
pounds.
strategy is built around what our clients are asking for, what your clients are asking for today. It's not a strategy that, you know, from 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's what we're seeing that the clients are wanting and how they want the information presented to them.
For sure.
So with that, I think we are done. Any last words, Ricky? And you're not going to show your new assistant?
I did. He's right here. This is my actual dog. Look at him. What a good boy. But no, I'll show him next time. He's currently napping right next to me, and I'm very glad my dog didn't bark the entire time. We're very stoked about that.
All right. Everybody have a great day, and thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate all of you. And we actually listen, so we like having the feedback. And I just want to remind you that you can, you know, request features, put your feedback in your portal at Partner Account, and there's a link on the right-hand side. But y'all have a great day, and again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.